Okay, we're recording, and I'm with Jay, and I don't need to introduce Jay because everybody knows who Jay is, or I'll introduce you beforehand. But you told me we only have an hour and a half, so we need to spend this entire time talking, talking intensely about ChatGPT. Okay, so where to start? What have you been doing with it?
Yeah.
That's my first question for you.
So I'm going to answer that, but
Okay.
I want to start with a disclaimer because you always apologize for crying on my podcast. So I'm going to apologize for crying on yours
Oh no. Okay.
because I think there are going to be some tears involved in this
That's
conversation.
gonna be
So
weeping. Will there be gnashing of teeth as well? Or are we going to go
there
full
may,
biblical?
yeah, there may be. Yeah.
Nice.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So let me answer that question directly. And then I want to, if it's cool with you, it's like I'm acting like it's my podcast. I want to kind of
I would
frame the
rather be your
conversation.
podcast, so we can do whatever you want.
Because I kind of want to frame this conversation around the bigger AI picture because
Okay.
we get all wrapped up in what AI means for authors, and there's like 0.2% of the world that gives a shit about
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
it's going to affect authors, right?
Yeah.
So like I want to, and there's some really significant things I think that are worth at least mentioning. So,
Yeah.
and we'll probably circle back to this in more detail, but I am playing and experimenting in several different um, language models, different platforms, different mediums. So
Nice.
I'm using Chat GPT Plus, which is for
Mm.
the paid version, to do storytelling, text. You know, the things that most of us in the author space would consider to be, work. Like that's the
Yeah.
kind of stuff I'm playing with, and I'll get into more specifics later. I'm also using it for music production. So there's a tool called Emergent Drums that I'm using where the AI will create the drum sound for you. So you tell it like you want a snare, and it'll make you like 8 different snare sounds, and you like pick the one
Wow.
that suits you better. There's another one I just started using called Wave Tool, which I
Mm.
think sits on top of Chat GPT. I think it might be pulling their API, but you talk to it as like the engineer. So like you have your
Mm.
mix and you're like, you know what? I want my guitar sound to sound more like Back in Black by AC/DC. Can you do that? And you type the prompt in and it goes, sure. And it says, I'm gonna boost the EQ in this zone. I'm gonna add this effect here. Just click if you want me to apply that. So it's almost like
Fascinating.
having an audio engineer there. And then on the visual side, uh, Dolly 2 and Midjourney I've been playing with for a long time now. In this in this space, a long time is like a year or less, you know.
Hmm.
Um, but and that's for visual and graphical creation and editing. And I am poised and ready for video, which I think is coming next. So
Mm.
the text prompting video platforms are definitely the next one. So I'm trying to play in all of these different sandboxes so that
Mm.
I have some idea of even what the heck these things are.
Yeah. 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 Which of those sandboxes are you enjoying the most?
Well, I'm enjoying the music one the most, but
Nice.
I'm finding Chat GPT the most powerful.
Interesting. I should give a disclaimer outside of crying that you and I are both, I would call it not enthusiasts, but optimistic. Is that true of you?
Yes.
I'm an optimist about this stuff. Are you,
Yeah.
would you put
Well,
yourself in that world?
yeah, and I think that's a good setup for the I took a lot of notes, man. I was like, I
Nice.
have to. I really wanted to gather my thoughts for this. I'm like, this is a really important conversation. I don't want to just don't want to riff it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I wrote down, if you'll indulge me, I have sort of
Jay, take it
three.
away.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I have three sort of thoughts around AI that will
Mm.
frame the rest of this conversation. So there might be, a listener might be turning this off right now, and that's fine.
They
Like this,
shouldn't. They should not, because
and
this is
they
important.
shouldn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of it. So, all right, number one, I believe that the time we're in now, the AI is comparable to the wheel or the invention of electricity.
Mm.
I think it's more than just writing books. Like it's way more important than that. And I think if you are in a wait and see or denial mode right now, you're doing so at your own peril. These AI technologies are going to affect every facet of our lives. And whether you actively use them or not, our lives will never be the same.
Hmm.
Think of the difference, and I know you're old enough to appreciate this. Think of the difference of life before social media and after social media, right? Fundamentally changed. Whether you use it or not, whether you like it or not, it has fundamentally changed the way we live.
Yeah.
So that's big point number one.
Okay.
Big point number two.
I'm allowed to circle back to these, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Big point number two.
I'm just framing these out for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
The second big point for me is I swing from utopia to dystopia on almost a daily basis. So I have, I wake up feeling really optimistic, and then sometimes I wake up and I'm like, "Wow, we're all doomed.
Hmm.
This is not good." Uh, and I think what I'm shocked about is how many people in my world are ignoring this completely,
Hmm.
or they feel like it doesn't affect them. And ignorance isn't an excuse. Like saying you don't understand it, like it's going to affect you. And I'm seriously taken aback by that. Like I
Hmm.
thought there would be more people in all aspects of like talking about this right now, outside of just the small little geek squads that seem to be pretty engaged in it. And then
Yeah.
the third big point, and then I'll shut up for a bit. I think if you're a creative or a white collar professional, you're either going to use AI or you're doomed. Like I don't know how else to say it. Like I can't soften it anymore. Like if you unclog toilets or you change brakes, you're probably good for a while. Like we need those people. We need those jobs. If you're pouring concrete, if you're laying bricks, like AI is not going to be a threat to you. But if you're doing anything that involves a computer, the internet, you have to you're really going to have to consider what's happening, and if you refuse to acknowledge the development of this technology, you're going to be on the losing side.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go big to small with those thoughts. Like we said, like let's talk like big life and then come into writer life toward the end of the conversation. Are you cool with that? Um,
Absolutely.
so let's start dystopia. What are you afraid of with AI?
Yeah.
I can go first if you'd rather I go first, but yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. I've been talking. Yeah. You go first.
Well, I just don't want to put you on the spot and be like, what are you doing, Jay?
No, I got them listed, man. I'm ready.
Okay. I think my biggest one is that I think the I'm nervous for my kids' world.
Hmm.
Um, for my world as like a senior adult, in that like because of our capitalistic framework, that this is just going to increase the wealth gap in massive ways.
Yeah.
That's my dystopian fear, is that like we're already at a place in the world where like if you are wealthy, you have a army of people helping you with things. And it gives you a massive unfair advantage, from like how you're structuring your personal economic choices, to like what you're doing with your finances, to like what you're eating, to your medical care, to your like, I have small engagement with some people that are on a level of wealth I will likely never be at, and watching how the army of people that they have at their disposal doing things for them, in part to keep themselves wealthy and their children wealthy. um, they're also about to have an army of very intelligent bots, and it is going to increase the wealth gap in a massive way, because the people making these bots want to make money. That's because we live in a capitalistic society. So these will be pointed toward making money.
I
Yeah.
am. That is number one on my list as well.
Yeah.
I'm less concerned about Skynet and Terminator bots than I am about that gap. Like here's an example of what you're talking about. You're going to have people who are going to be able to afford a personal medical AI assistant
Hmm.
who is going to test their blood work occasionally, who is going to recommend meals, who is going to do screenings. And then you're going to have a lot of people who don't have health insurance,
Yeah.
have nothing, right? Like that is how that gap is going to widen. I would also add to that concern that I have seen, as we all have firsthand, what it looks like when you have the majority of the world's wealth concentrated in a few international corporations, and
Hmm.
it's not good. I mean, you look at well, they used to be called them FANG, but you look at Facebook and Amazon and Apple and uh, Alphabet or Google. Like, I mean, those companies, Microsoft, like they hold the majority of the power, more so than even governments do.
Yeah, even the nation, like there's more Facebook users than in any nation state in the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and the
And not
amount of
like names on
power,
a list, active Facebook users.
right?
People, there's more people that log into that program every day than there exists in any nation state in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that is an added concern because, I mean, Microsoft dumped $10 billion into OpenAI. Like
Yeah.
they know where this is headed, and
Hmm.
and I think that part of the promise of blockchain and Web3 was this decentralized nature, leveling the playing field, much the same way the internet was when it first appeared. And then Web 2 came along and social media came along and destroyed all that because
Hmm.
then you had your Facebooks and your Apples and your Amazons taking over. So that is also at the top of my list. It's the wealth gap. It's the concentration of power within a certain number of these, and then sort of at a lower third is bad actors,
Mm.
taking advantage of the AI, and that could be as subtle as election propaganda, and it could be as explicit as digital terrorism. But any and all of that is a concern of mine as well.
Yeah. And in any kind of race to, I think, any kind of like accelerated race to use a technology first lends to people misusing something at the cost, and by misusing I mean using it at the cost of others, right? Like I do not want to know what harebrained scheme stock traders are doing right now with this. I don't
Right.
want to know, because like, you think they can crash the markets with like normal computers. Just wait till you give them the predictive power of AI, like now, and like just that exists now. Like I could imagine if I understood stocks on a minimum level, asking Chat GPT to project things for me.
Yeah.
I bet it does it really well. So yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
uh,
And again, that leads to that bigger gap in wealth distribution.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah. Any other dystopian fears you have?
The one that's hard to put my finger on, and this is the one that will sometimes wake me up at night, is no one really knows what AGI is going to look like. Like, when we talk about artificial intelligence, what we're talking about is what we see right now with
Hmm.
prompting and stuff. But artificial generalized intelligence (AGI) is supposedly the one where the program becomes sentient,
Yeah,
and it can make those kind of decisions on its own. And so
yeah.
this
Think
is
like Star Wars droids.
yeah,
It's like
exactly. Right.
R2D2 has a personality and wanders around and does his own thing all the time. And yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Right. Like I was having coffee with a friend, and he nailed it very succinctly. He's like, imagine imagine AI is decides that we're doing too much damage to the earth with the power plant, so it just shuts them down in our
yeah. It just
to
turns them
protect
off.
us.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah.
yeah,
That kind of thing, right? Like that's the
yeah,
you know.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that kind of stuff is scary. And I will say, like, I hear people talk about that kind of stuff, and I do just feel very hopeless.
Mhm.
Like, because, I listen to and follow a lot of tech reporting, and like, Ezra Klein's one of my favorite, and he can be very level-headed. And he was talking last week about how there's all these billionaires and millionaires who are in charge of like the development of AI right now, and they all are writing these things like you and I are talking about this, like, oh, this could end the world.
Yeah.
And Ezra Klein is always like, well, then why are you still doing
Yeah.
it? Like,
Right.
And there's this like, oh, but we're pioneers and we have to. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, I think Ezra Klein's quote was like, if I was doing something in my house and in the middle of doing it, I thought there's a 10% chance this would kill my children. He's like, I would stop doing that thing.
Yes.
Like, but they don't, that's where it starts to feel powerless because it's like, we can't seem to be able to stop them because, like you said, these multinational corporations are really bigger than any government entity. Like, there's not, and our government isn't exactly functional right now. So there's not a lot you can do to, like,
No, and our government can't stop development of AI in China or in
no,
Korea
yeah,
or
well,
in
that's what I'm saying.
Russia.
Like, what are you gonna do? Like,
Yeah.
and it's not like there's some kind of world summit that's gonna be called where everybody's like, all right, nobody's building nuclear bombs, right? Like, no, nobody's doing that. So yeah, anyway. Oh man. Okay, so that's enough dark and sad. Uh because I could spiral there all day. Uh let's talk about the pros. What are you optimistic about with the current AI world we're in?
I see the most promise in health and education, no doubt about it. I kind of alluded to this, your personal AI medical assistant that I think we'll all have, whether it's on our phone or it's embedded in a chip in our skull or wherever it happens to be. I think we're all going to have a something looking out for us, and I think it's, as far as for preventative disease, I think it's going to be just transformative. I think for education too. Like I listened to a lot of what Khan from Khan Academy talks about with education, and he was saying, like, he sees a very near future where every student has their own personal AI teacher,
Yeah.
and adjusts the content to what they want to learn and to their pace. And I mean, it's just, there's things I can't even imagine. But I think the health and education are really the two fields where we're going to see just mind blowing developments.
Yeah. And again, that's part of that's where I'm worried too, because that is not going to be public at first, right? Like,
Hmm.
the AI assisted education is ain't coming to my public school anytime soon. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
there's just a, see, I went look at me going negative again. Look at that. Any other positives you see that you're like, oh, this is gonna be,
I mean, I think there's a really strong possibility that AI is going to solve some serious problems. I mean, you know, what's kind of funny right now is when I hear the AI doomers talking about it, it's as if everything is beautiful right now.
yeah, I know, yeah,
I'm
right.
like,
Oh
right,
yeah,
like,
everything's perfect, guys. Way to
and
go.
AI is going to ruin it. Like, have
Yeah,
you looked around? Like, do you see what's happening
yeah,
out
yeah,
there? Like, whether it's climate or race relations or politics or international warfare, like, we're not in a good place,
yeah,
but the flip side to that is, I think, especially on the scientific front, I could see AI coming up with some solutions to things, like things we can't even imagine right now, like carbon extraction might be a I'm oversimplifying it. I'm not a
no, no,
scientist. I don't know what I'm talking about, but like using some type of technology or tool to pull carbon out of the atmosphere uh, to hopefully offset climate change, like that. Those are the kind of things where I don't even think we understand the analytical and computational power behind the AI. But I think, based on the very small experience I've had with it, the analyzation powers of AI are just beyond my comprehension.
yeah. And I think, there's so many problems in the world we have right now that, like you're saying, are multidimensional and multivariable. And it's just, it takes so much for the human brain to be able to retain that much information and work out. Like, I was thinking, like, just this earlier this year, my family found out that we have a genetic disease that, like, it's degenerative, it's bad, it sucks. And because we're in Baltimore, we have Hopkins next to us, and we have the number one doctor in the world who's studying that disease, right? And so we get to go to her. Like, hey, like, what do you think? She has over 100 studies going, and she has data coming in from all, hundreds of thousands of participants from around the world, giving her data. And her hardest job is analyzing all of that data and processing, looking for trends, testing things, finding things. Having AI assisted research like that has the potential to solve some enormous problems
Yeah.
that will make meaningful change in people's lives. I mean, the big joke is like, how long have we been looking for a cure for cancer, right? Like, how long have
Right.
we been looking for that? And the problem is this weird multivariable problem that, is there a cure for it? How do we stop this like mutative growth that kills us? It's that like we've made huge strides over the last 100 years. How fast could those strides have been made if we had an AI assisted data processor that was like, hey, let me look at these are the trends we see. Can you go look at all these trends for us? And like, can we already put all of our research data into a corpus knowledge, right?
Yeah.
For example, we publish it all in the American Journal of Medicine, right? Like the question is like, what doctor can read all of that and understand
Yeah.
all of that? Well, now you have an AI that can take all of that and process it and find connections to things that we may have never found just because we can't.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I do think there's huge hope there. There's like
Yeah.
beautiful, yeah, that can have impact on like everyday people and not
Yes.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I was my wife and I were walking the other day and we were talking a little bit about this and I said, I could like one of the limitations, no matter how good your doctor is, your doctor can only diagnose you based on their own experience.
Hmm.
Most most of what they learn in medical school is to get them there. It's in their practice where they learn to
Yeah. It's
identify
what they see
patterns
every
and
day over
trends, right?
time. Yeah.
So even if you have the best doctor and they're in their prime of their career, and I mean, what if they've seen let's say they've seen 5,000 patients, whatever, 10,000 patients. That's their pool of knowledge that they're using to diagnose your symptoms. Imagine now if they tap into 10 million
Yeah.
AI analyzed appointments and they can really zero in on whatever the specific ailment or symptom that you have and they're pulling on not just from their own personal experience but from the experience of every other doctor in the world
Yeah.
all at the same time. Like that's to me where, like you said, the average person, the regular person might not even know that, right? Like they might just go to the doctor and the doctor has an iPad and they tap a few things and they give them some diagnosis. But like that's what I think it could do behind the scenes.
Yeah. 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 Okay. What do you want to talk about next?
Should we talk about writing next?
We can talk about writing next. Yeah. Let's talk about creating in general. So you're using it for music. You're using it for, you said, story creation with the prompt things. You're using it for visual creation with Midjourney. You're thinking about getting into the video creation when that starts coming out. Um, I am using it just to kind of, so we're all cards on the table. I play with it with story creation. I haven't done anything serious, but like, just kind of, I'm still just kind of testing it out a little bit. Before we got on the call, I was like, I had 5 minutes and I just keep it open. And so I wrote GPT a prompt that was like, hey, write for me a scene in the style of Jeff Elkins between an elderly homeless man and a teenage superhero when the two characters are discussing a cheeseburger. And it took about a minute and a half. It wrote me a solid, you know, 2,500 word scene. It is 95% dialogue. Um, it is in dialogue in my style. There are things that it is doing that are like it's breaking segments where I would break segments. It's like, using tags like I use tags. Like I can tell that like, yeah, this is in my style. And it's B,
Mm-hmm.
but I could take it and make it A. Like, you
Well,
know,
let me ask you a clarifying question. Is this 3.5 or version 4 that you're using right now?
3.5. This is the
Okay.
free. You know me,
Okay.
they don't have to pay for anything. It's the free. It's
Well,
3.5.
here's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
There is a tremendous leap between 3.5 and 4
Oh,
in
don't tell me
terms of
that.
what it returns. All
I
right.
mean, I know that, but yeah.
I'm saying that because I had a very similar experience in experimenting in that I asked it to the Cask of Amontillado is one of my favorite Edgar Allan Poe short stories.
Yeah.
So I said, make me a modern retelling in the style of J. Thorn, set it in a post-apocalyptic world. And I did this with version 4. And what it came back with, it was I'm gonna be completely honest, it was as good or better than what I would have written on my own.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And like you said, now we have the benefit of having a back catalog, and therefore,
Yeah, I got
it
12 novels, 100 short
yeah,
stories in the
it's
world.
it's
Like, yeah,
scraping our stuff.
yeah,
This is why I don't believe that it hasn't scraped Amazon, because uh, there were no setisms in my story,
really.
and yeah, and the only way I would have known that is if it had read my writing, and all my books are on Amazon, so
Yeah.
I'm pretty convinced it's scraped Amazon somehow, or
Oh, yeah.
enough of it to make that determination.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, it was crazy, man. I went from idea. I'm like, oh, I should do a modern retelling of a short story. I went from that to uploading it on BookFunnel with the cover, sales copy, keywords, done, done.
Yeah.
55 minutes
Damn.
elapsed time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know I'm also using it, like you said, for copy generation
Yep.
because I suck at marketing. I'm terrible at it. So like, hey, give me a book description about this kind of book that's blah 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 blah. And I'm using it, we're using it at work. I write I lead a team that simulates difficult conversations. it, it can't do that for us. It doesn't do it well enough yet. But part of our job, like there's a lot of times where we have to find like 50 ways to say something, the
Yeah.
same thing. And we used to, back when we were in an office, I'd get stuck. I'd get like 15. And then I'd be like, hey, everybody come in here. Here's the prompt. Go. And we would just fill a whiteboard. And so I was telling my team, I was like, look, once we went remote, we couldn't do that anymore. It actually really slowed us down. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, this isn't like I've noticed a lapse in our work. And so like for this, it's like, oh yeah, this is that moment, but it doesn't take us an hour. It doesn't take three of us. It takes about 2 minutes. And
Well,
it's just
yeah.
like, yeah.
And like I didn't look, I didn't go back and find it. I didn't sift through it, but I remember when Pseudowrite first came out in beta, and we were talking on Writers Inc. in the intro. This was probably 2020 or 2021. It's been at
Mm,
least 2 years.
yeah.
And I remember saying at the time, and my position has changed on this a little bit. I was like, you know what? Writing's over because like this is going to get to the point where like if you want to read a book, you're just going to be like, hey, Chat GPT, write me a Stephen King like novel, make me the protagonist, 70,000 words, set it in Georgia. And
Yeah.
then 30 seconds later, I'm going to be reading it. I'm like, isn't that what most
Yeah.
people are going to do? Who, who cares, right? Like most readers don't care. They want to
Yeah.
read the kind of story they want to read. They don't care who the publisher is. They don't often remember who the author is. They can read more than you can write.
Yeah.
And here we are. We're almost to that place. I mean, I took what I did with that short story is I read through it, and there were certain places where I was like, that didn't quite get it the way I wanted it, and I would highlight that paragraph, and I would tell ChatGPT to like add more detail or
Hmm.
less dialogue or more setting, and boom, it would do it. And like I'm telling you, in a matter of 15 minutes, I went through a 3,000 word short story and it was like done,
Man.
edited, proofread, grammar. It was
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. How do you not surrender to that as a creative? Because you have it, right? Like you're writing, you're building. How do you
Yeah,
not surrender to it?
I don't know, man.
Okay.
I don't know. Like this is where it's going to get really real, and this is where I might need a box of tissues. I don't like. Seth talked about like the level of mediocrity has just been ratcheted up, right?
Yeah.
Like you, Chat GPT is going to create boatloads of mediocre stuff right now. It's going to get
Hmm.
better, but right now, boatloads and boatloads of mediocre stuff. So if your writing is mediocre, you're done.
Yeah. And
And
let's pause there for a second, and because I know what you're talking about, but I
yeah,
just want for anybody listening, the idea partially is that like people are going to use this initially to flood markets to make quick bucks.
yes,
And it's gonna, and when you're going to make a quick buck, it is minimal viable product.
yes.
and it's speed. How much can I get out? Minimal viable product, flood that market, make all the money I can, and then get out of there. Right. Like
Yes.
it's a like hit and go. And it's so that's what you mean when you're like, that feels what Godin talks about, like that's where we've been for a while. And this is like going to escalate this to a huge new level.
Well, yeah. So like I think the paradigm that we've been working on in self-publishing is over. Like I think that approach is done.
Talk about that more.
Okay.
Jay, I'm 100%
Yeah,
with
I
you.
mean,
Yeah.
and I'm just being totally honest, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
No.
including myself in this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
like
with you.
I'm not above this.
Yeah.
I think genre fiction writers are in big trouble,
Mhm.
especially ones who are doing writing to market rapid release, which is what I'm about to do. I'm literally working on a write to market rapid release project that I started like 9 months ago, and now I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I guess I published this book, but after that, I don't know, because
Hmm.
here's why. It has nothing to do with the quality of writing, although I'm going to argue that Chat GPT writes better than a lot of writers. But let's set that aside. Let's not say it's about the quality of writing. It is a supply and demand issue,
Hmm.
right? Readers want to read the same story over and over again, but they want it to be different.
Hmm.
Right? That's what it means to write to market, or that's what it means to do rapid release. Like if you write cozy mysteries, those readers expect certain conventions, there's certain tropes, there's obligatory scenes they want to have in there. It's
Hmm.
formulaic. And up until this point, the writers who were best at writing in a formulaic fashion and do it quickly could profit by that.
Yeah.
Well, that's over.
Yeah.
That's over right now,
Yeah.
right? Like there are already authors using AI to crank these out. And imagine like at the height of rapid release, it was like, oh, a book a month, like that's really going to keep your algorithm going and stuff, right? We're going to be talking like 10 books a day
Yeah.
that AI can generate. That's very formulaic.
Yeah.
And that the stories are good in the sense that they appeal to that particular reader.
Yeah. We talk
So
about this all the time in my community, that like there's a line,
yeah,
and the story for a genre reader, which not every reader is a genre reader, but the ones that our industry has been making money off of are the genre readers. You just have to get above that line. It
yeah,
doesn't, if you're a foot above that line or 1,000 feet above that line, it does not matter. You just have to be above that line for that type of reader, for the reader you're
yes,
describing, that Amazon is built on, right? Like
yes.
those are the readers that are the foundation and the pillars and the roof of the Amazon algorithm. And that, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I don't even entertain arguments right now that this isn't possible because it's already happening.
yeah.
So I've heard things like, well, Amazon is gonna they're not gonna tolerate that. Amazon doesn't
It's
care
just
who
like,
writes
they
the
do not give a
book,
crap about us. They haven't given a
right?
crap
They
about us.
never
Yeah,
have, right?
do
The
not
the,
care.
the other argument is like, well, readers won't
Oh,
stand for it.
they don't
There are
care.
fiction factory models right now with pen names of people of authors who are not humans. They don't
Yeah,
exist,
yeah,
right? They're a team of writers who
yeah,
have put it together and releasing under a pen name. Throw that
yeah,
argument out.
yeah,
Oh, they're gonna crack down on it, and the copyright office is not going to allow copyright. How is the copyright office going to know if you
yeah,
used AI or not? It is
yeah,
already beating AI detection systems at the college level. It's
yeah,
already beating AI detection systems when it comes to bar exam and uh, and those kind of standardized tests. If you think for a second that the copyright office is going to be able to stop the flood of AI, you're foolish.
yeah. Well, and that's not how the Copyright Office works, right? Like that's not what the Copyright Office currently does. The Copyright Office works for Disney. So like
Yeah.
if you go and write 50 Star Wars novels this month and publish them all on Amazon, yeah, expect a letter
Yes.
from Disney to be like, hey, a-hole, take this down. But
Right.
like that's how copyright works. Copyright doesn't work in them like looking for plagiarism. The
Right.
person who was plagiarized has to find it and then sue you. That's how copyright. And so like,
Right.
yeah, your AI is not going to be cranking out a 1,000 Harry Potter novels unless J.K. Rowling's like green lights, or whatever publishing company owns her stuff now green lights that, right? Like, but Yeah. Anyway.
Well, so let's assume, because I love nerds, right? So let's assume there's this fictional government agency that's an AI detection agency, and it's not paranormal, but
Yeah.
right, and their job is to go through books published on Amazon and identify which ones are AI, written with AI, and which ones weren't.
Yeah.
Faulty premise,
Yeah.
because as I've said to people, do you spell check? Do you use pro writing aid?
Yeah.
That's AI.
Yeah.
So how do you like? And people are like, well, I'm gonna put a label on mine, or I'm gonna say that only a human wrote this. I'm like, but to what degree? Like again, you get down to you're really splitting hairs at a certain point, right? Like if I use AI to write my sales copy, does that count? If
Yeah.
I use AI to brainstorm, but I use my fingers to type, does that count?
Yeah.
Like it's just you see where it's just a ridiculous
It
premise.
is.
So
Well, and it's one of those things of like, when we start talking about scale, like there are going to be some readers that care. They want a human book. As in the same way, I held an author event last month. I advertised that author event as local Baltimore authors. There were a whole bunch of book buyers who showed up to support local Baltimore authors because that is very important to them. Am I going to scale that nationally and build the Stephen King career? No. I think I made $150 that day. Right? Like, is that so? Yeah, you can have a niche business where you sell to those readers who are very concerned about AI and only want a human author to be doing things, but don't expect to be the next John Grisham doing that.
I, I
Right?
would I would question whether that's even a business model. And like again,
Yeah.
like this is not what people want to hear, but like I have to speak my truth on this.
Yeah.
I don't know, other than a very very small percentage of authors currently writing. I don't see it as a viable business model moving forward. I just
Yeah.
don't. Right? Like if you're catering to that crowd that you're talking about, that's a great hobby and it's a great way to spend your time, and you might make enough money to take your family out for dinner, but you
Yeah.
live on that,
Yeah.
you know. Like I just can't see like a lot of what people are thinking about now is based on the way things are now, not the way they're going to be.
No,
Like
yeah.
I don't know what the number is. Let's say it's 1 million books on Amazon. What happens when it's 10 million?
Yeah.
What chance do you have of breaking above that line that you were talking about,
Yeah.
whether you have an audience or not? Like
Yeah.
you're gonna get the top indie authors. We'll say Brandon Sanderson's an indie, for even though he isn't, but like your
Sure.
Brandon Sandersons, right? Like um Michael Anderle, like those people are gonna use AI, and they're gonna be even more prolific.
Yeah.
But but if anybody can publish a good genre fiction novel error free in a matter of seconds and upload it to Amazon, they're
Yeah.
going to.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not the
Why would you
it's
not?
not the tsunami of crap argument anymore, because it's not going to be crap. It's going to be what readers want.
Yeah. 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 No, I'm totally with you. So what did you make of Godin and Seth Godin in his argument, since we kind of structured this around him, kind of ended his argument with like, hey, real create I don't want to use the word real because that's not a good word. Creators, go build your tribes. Because he was like, this takes us, this is the it. He was like, what this is the end of the industrialization of art. He was
Yes.
like, minimum viable product will no longer happen. So because AI is going to flood that. So he was like, go build your tribe, go create your art. And he was optimistic about it. He's like, this is going to be good because this is going to create people with unique and disciplined voices are going to be able to find and keep an audience long term. How do you feel about that argument he's making?
I'm not as optimistic, unfortunately, but I will,
As someone who's tried to build a tribe,
but I don't disagree with him.
yeah,
So and I want to give people some practical examples to chew on. So like I think everything we've talked about, there's one exception I can think of right now, which is memoir.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Like that is not something that people are not going to be cranking out 10 memoirs a day. Now, are you going to make a living as writing memoirs? Not many people will. But I really believe that memoirs a play, and here's why. It's because whether you use AI to write the memoir or not is irrelevant. What matters about the memoir as a genre is that it is extremely personal. It's personal experience to a
Mhm.
real person.
Yeah.
And so readers are going to connect with that. And then to Seth's point, I think one of the things that is going to be different moving forward is that the person who's really into the memoir is going to, like, for this is a terrible example, but be in a book club with the author,
Yeah.
or be in an author's online community, or
Hmm.
have an opportunity for a meetup, or an in, real world meetup. Now, that's not scalable in the same way that indie publishing has been for the past 15 years, which is why I say I don't think it's going to be a career, but I
Yeah.
think you could make pretty good money if you doubled down on being human and you built that into the process. Like the idea of just writing and doing nothing else, I don't see any way forward with that, whether you're writing memoir or not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would argue that that's actually we've actually been there for a while. That like, the gold rush age of publishing on Amazon and living on those proceeds. If you weren't in it 5 years ago, I don't know that you can even get in it now. Like
Yeah.
erase AI. Like even without AI, it's so established and was already so like full that like early adopters of new technology, like those that did like book talk when it first started, they could get in on it, but it's even too late to get in on book talk at this point. Like you're already competing with people that have audiences of millions. And like so, it's one of those like I don't even know that it was possible pre-AI, but now post-AI, I think it's definitely. But like you're saying, like I'm a huge fan of Friedrich Bachmann. His books defy genre. They're intensely emotional. They feel very personal, right? Like A Man Called Ove is a just deep look at death and humanity and community, right? Like Beartown is a terrifying look at what happens when our sports cultures collide with ethics, right? Like it's just like our youth sports culture, when it collides with ethics, what happens? I don't think someone is going to be able to, without having the brain of Bachman behind it. I don't think somebody's going to be able to, like, I'm going to crank out 5 million Bachman novels.
Right.
But Bachman's novels are always going to be Bachman's novels because they've got his humanity behind them. There's something in that dude that writes that kind of genre bending novel that isn't like, I can't tell you what kind of genre Beartown is.
Yeah.
And when he wrote it, he wasn't writing it to a formula. Like it's very clear. It's like, this is a beautiful story written by this person's brain. But I do think with Godin that there is the ability to build that kind of tribe around your work.
Yeah, and I lucked out in a way, because I made a decision several years ago that I wasn't going to. I don't want to say sell my soul, because that's not fair to people who are making really good living
Mm-mm.
in KDP. But like, I just decided, like, that was not where I was going to make my living. Like, I was going to help other people get what they want, and mostly in author services. And so what I ended up doing, totally by chance, is I attracted people who were doing this because they really love the process of writing,
Yeah,
and they didn't really care about the outcome. They didn't care about the financial compensation. And from the very beginning in my community, we've never had conversations about like AMS ads, or Facebook audiences, or ad budgets, or
yeah,
like that. Those are the conversations that don't happen in our community, because that's not the kind of writers who are in there.
yeah,
So in a way, I feel really optimistic for people like me and for those people, because I feel like I can now start to go back to them and say, you know what, everything we said about, you got to nail your genre, you got to niche down, that's over. You don't have
yeah,
to do that anymore.
yeah.
You can
Go
now write
Be
that.
crazy. Do whatever the hell
Yes,
you want.
because that's the only thing that's going to matter,
Yeah.
right? Like you
Ah,
can't, you're not going to be able to write a mainstream thriller to compete with the other 4 million mainstream thrillers that AI publishes every
yeah,
month. So you
yeah,
might as well go for broke and write the crazy idea and mash the genres up and be you and be completely different. You're
Yeah.
probably not going to make a ton of money doing it, but guess what? Nobody is.
Yeah.
But you're going to enjoy it, and it's going to be satisfying. And the readers who like your stuff are going to be like disciples. They're going to love that because
Yep.
they're going to be awash in the same old stuff, and they're going to be looking for things that are very different. So in a way, from when I started out, I'm a complete 180 now, and moving forward, what I'm going to be telling writers is, yeah, go nuts, be yourself, forget genre, forget commercial genre, because those days
Yeah.
are over.
Do whatever the hell. Yeah. And it's part of what, it's part of Seth's argument too, in that like when you are creating your own tribe, you need far less people to scale,
Yes,
right? Like when you're building on the tribe of a genre, you need tons and tons of people to scale. When you're building your own tribe, because they will come and buy whatever you make, you need less of them to scale. So yeah, because they're coming for you, not for the genre that you happen to be
that's right.
playing in. Yeah.
That's right. And I'm very fearful for there's a certain archetype of writer who we can identify. It's not a specific person, but it's definitely an archetype, which is like, this gravy train's going pretty well, and it's served me well. And when I say gravy train, I'm talking about like, KU page reads, or
Mm-hmm.
page reads and a combination of Facebook advertising or AMS ads, or whatever it's been. Those people right now who are like, yeah, I'm just going to keep doing that. Like, it's been working for me, and
Yeah, I'm just gonna put my head down,
I'm just going to put my head down. I'm
push
going to
through it.
keep doing it. Like, those people are doomed.
Yeah, and it's hard to say that because I know a lot of them,
I
and
know.
I love them, and they're amazing people. And there's been long seasons where I wish I was one of them.
Oh, me
I was
too.
like, I wish I could do that because I can't. I'm really bad at it. But
Me
like,
too.
I
I've
wish,
tried and
yeah,
failed at that, and I
yeah.
acknowledge it. I'm
Every time
totally
I try to
crazy.
write genre, I'm like, I'm ready to cozy mystery. And in
Yeah,
chapter 5, I murdered somebody. It's like, like, Jeff, it's not a cozy mystery anymore. I'm like, damn it. So yeah, but it's like, I always wished I could do that. And, but now you're right. I think it's tougher. I wonder, man. I mean, this is just me, speculating and future casting. But if I were sitting at KDP right now, I'd be like, I don't really need these damn indie authors anymore.
yeah.
I like, I would make more. Amazon would make more money if it just started, if it got 15 authors, one for each genre, and just started cranking out their own AI books.
So I wanna. It's so fascinating you said that, because I'm gonna say his name. I know he wouldn't care. I have coffee with Jim Kukral all the time, because we both live in Cleveland,
Nice.
and Jim kind of checked out of the book business when he quit the Sell More Book show, so
Yeah.
he doesn't follow it very closely. But at one point over the past couple months, because we talk about AI a lot,
Yeah.
he said that exact same thing to
No
me.
way. If I'm
He
on the same page
said,
as Jim, I'm super pumped. Yeah.
I'm telling you, and like, and like, Jim's a pretty wicked smart business guy, and he sees future trends, and he was like, put yourself in Amazon shoes.
Yeah.
Think of all the problems authors
Yeah.
create.
We're a pain in the ass.
Right. Right. Like, all of the just everything, all
Yeah.
the infrastructure, the support,
Yeah.
the royalties.
Yeah. We're the
Like,
worst. Yeah.
if
And their
AI
stupid
could
AI keeps shutting down our accounts, and then we become like massive a-holes on social media. Like, you shut me down, right? Like, that's what we do because they force us to. But if I'm thinking from their perspective, I'm like, I don't have to have any of that anymore.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, they could put a team of 10 people together in a basement in Singapore somewhere, and like, have them like, okay,
Yeah.
here's your prompts, crank them
Yeah.
out,
Go
right?
to
Like,
town. Yeah. Put one on covers. Hey, go get on Midjourney. Start cranking out some covers for us. Right? Like,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't think that's that far out of the realm of possibility. And again, it goes back to my point. Like, if what's been working for you for the past 15, 10, 5, even 2 years, you cannot count on that continuing. Like,
Yeah.
you might luck out somehow, or I could be completely wrong, and everything I'm saying right now is total BS. That's a very real possibility.
Yeah.
But I think that's a huge risk to take. And
Mhm.
at the very least, if you are one of those authors who is all in on Amazon, or been banking page reads, or Kindle Vella, or whatever the Amazon specific thing is, at least be starting to think about what's beyond that. Like, start now,
Yeah.
because if that it turns off, you're done.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think, and it's I don't even know that I want to chase that anymore. But yeah, that was well, okay, let me chase this. The good news is innovation in the United States follows money. And there's not a lot of money in publishing.
Correct.
So the good news is they will likely ignore us for a while.
The only hole in that bucket
Yeah,
is that the threshold is so low now.
it is.
That's the problem,
It
right?
is.
Like with like we're again like this is another our conversation I have with people who are like, oh, I used Chat GPT, it was terrible, and it got this wrong, and it did this wrong, and I'm like, this is the worst it will ever be. Right
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
the
Right now.
worst it will ever
In fact,
be.
it's better 30 seconds after you did that prompt
Yes,
than it was before you did it.
right, right. So imagine like, don't even think about Chat GPT 4. What about 10? What
Yeah,
about 40?
yeah,
Right? And and it's not going to be text prompt. It's going to be voice prompt.
yeah.
It's going to take a humanistic form. It's literally going to be like, hey, I'm going to go have coffee with my AI and have it write me 50 books
Yeah,
in
it's
space opera
interesting.
books.
Yeah, that going back to what Ezra Klein was talking about was he was like one of the real dangers of this, looking at like if you try to predict how things come based on previous trends. He was like the idea of the internet was that it was going to connect all of us.
Right.
He's like, but what it ended up doing was sucking time and siloing, right? Like, because that's where the money was, right? Like the money was in our attention. So it ended up like pulling, like, we're not freer because we have social media.
No.
We're like on it all the time now. Like, it's like it took all of our time and we spend all this time on it. And he's like, one of the things we can likely expect from AI is that we're each going to have our own little personalized buddies that we pay for,
Yeah.
that we really like spending time with, and that,
Yes.
like, is geared to have us enjoy time with them, and
Yep.
have us enjoy hanging out with them. And it's
There was an argument, or not an argument, a conversation I had a while ago about I was calling it like this on-demand entertainment, and again, this was probably several years ago. I was like, what's going to happen is you're going to sit down in front of your viewing device. Let's not even call it a screen, whatever it happens to be, and you're going to be like, I want to watch samurais fighting aliens, and give me a 10-episode season, give me 5 seasons, go. And you're going to be sitting there watching whatever this on-demand entertainment is,
yeah,
and the pushback on that was, well, but people like to enjoy things together, like they like to watch the same shows, and they like to talk about the same movies. And I was like, they did.
yeah, they
I
used
don't
to.
think it's true now. I
Yeah.
mean, when I was growing up back in the olden days, we had 3 channels, and our family watched TV together every night.
Hmm.
Every night, the whole family sat down in one room and watched television together.
Yeah.
I don't know about in your household. When's the last time your entire family sat down and watched something together?
We force a movie night every once in a
Okay,
while.
you
We're
force
like,
it.
yeah, but I mean, force is a bad word. We agree on, like, hey, this is something the whole family wants to see.
Yeah,
Usually it has to do with something we want to process together. So, like,
yeah.
in a good way, not in like a heavy way, but like my sister has Downs. There was a new movie that came out with Woody Harrelson called Champions, where he like does a special Olympics
Mm.
basketball team. And my kids were like, "Oh my gosh, it's a whole bunch of Aunt Jenny's playing basketball. We gotta watch it." And so we sat down as a family and watched it. And Woody Harrelson very much Woody Harrelsoned up. I wish I had AI so I could be like, "Hey, could we like take Woody out and put in like Andrew Garfield and like do this whole thing again?" But like, like it was. But we did that because it was a specific experience, right? Like, but
Right.
no, 9 times out of 10, like, I don't typically even know what my 18-year-old daughter is watching. Like sometimes I'll be talking about something. I'll be like, "Hey man, I was watching Peaky Blinders. It was really interesting." She's like, "Oh my gosh, I love that one episode." I'm like, "You're watching Peaky Blinders? Like, what are you doing? Like, what?
I
When did that?"
I know.
Yeah,
I had the same conversation with Brenna. Like,
yeah,
I realized, like, oh, we're watching all the same stuff. I'm watching it in the living room on the TV by myself, and she's watching it in her bedroom on her phone by herself.
yeah, yeah. We don't even like my TV is used by my children. My wife and I watch everything on our laptops. Like we don't. You know, and the only time I watch anything anymore is like when I'm doing dishes. So like I have to have it anyway. We're way too down the rabbit hole in the Elkins family habits. But I will say, just to push back on that a little bit, because I work for a training company that trains people how to talk. There is this interesting thing that happens with people in that you run out of like not writers, but like normos. You run out of ideas real quick. So like we have prompts. We talk all the time about like going off prompt where people just get to say whatever they want instead of giving them suggestive prompts of like what to say in the conversation. And we find a lot of times that like they do that like 3 or 4 exchanges and then they're like, I don't know what to do. And, and so then they need the prompts because it's like, well, this is why we use prompts because like it helps. So I think the creation like AI based creation without a prompter, I think is going to I think there'll always be a space for like, I created this and it's excellent. That line we were talking about before was like just over the minimum viable product. That line goes away. And all of a sudden, getting 1,000 feet above that line is actually really, really important.
Yeah.
Like way above that line. But I think there's always going to be a space for that where people want to experience something that somebody else created, that was not generated by them. Right. Like there is that like, this is separate from me and I enjoy that. So I think there's always room for that, but it is going to demand extreme excellence. Like it's not
Right.
minimum viable product isn't going to do it anymore. It's got to be the best of the best of the best.
Which
Uh,
again, it's the end of mediocrity. Like
yeah,
you just
yeah, yeah,
right. It's
yeah,
gonna. It can't just be run of the mill.
yeah. But I could see an AI system where it's like, hey, you liked this, and you liked this, and you liked this. Look, here's 5 prompts. Tell us which of these 5 to put together into this thing that we just created for you. Like, hey, I noticed, like, again, if I was at KDP, I'd be like, hey, I noticed that you read Brandon Sanderson and then you went and read Stephen King and then you went but like 20 years ago, you read this book. Like, would you want a book I create based on all 3 of those things? Like, yeah, I want that.
Yeah.
Great. Here you go. Spotify's doing that now. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
noticed Spotify has a DJ.
The DJ.
Yeah, that is a weird mild AI. And it's like, hey, you listened to this in 2018. Here's some songs right now that feel like the song you listened to in 2018. And I can tell they're still tweaking it. I use Spotify a lot. I listen to it a lot. I'm like, you guys are at like 70% there.
Yeah.
Like, but I give you a year.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Sometimes they make assumptions about what I liked about a song that is not what I liked about the song.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, this kind of sounds like country. You must like country. I'm like, no, I don't like country. What are you talking about? Like, no, that's not why I like that. So, but it's catching up. It'll get there. I can totally see that happening with writing.
Oh
Because
yeah.
like these 3, here's an 80,000 word book in 5 minutes that
Yeah, and
combines.
like
Yeah.
I don't want to go really dark on this, but if you think about like Ready Player One, like if you combine metaverse aspirations with AI, you may get a situation where God, this is really dark, but like we don't have a lot of real friends, right? We're
Yeah.
living in a simulated reality
Yeah.
where AI is creating the entertainment, and if we want to talk about the entertainment it created, it can create friends that can have the conversations with us
Yeah.
about the entertainment.
Yeah.
Like it gets a little mind bendy,
It
but
gets a
like
little mind bendy. Yeah.
yeah, it's happening. This stuff is
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah. Which is why when at the first I was like, I worry a lot about the world my kids are going to be in.
Yeah.
Like what their world's going to be like. Yeah. So we've gone way down the rabbit hole. Let's pull back for if there's any authors still listening.
They're all crying right
They're all
now.
everybody's in the corner with their knees pulled to their chest. Like, I don't know what to do. What are some ways you're an author, you're writing books, you're not in the genre hunt, right? You're not like, oh my gosh, Because I have moments, man, where I'm tempted, where I'm like, you know what?
Well,
I
I
could
mean,
use a couple $1,000. I'm gonna write 50 romance. I'm gonna take 2 weeks off of work and
well,
crank out 50 romances.
my plan was like, I have this mainstream thriller that's at the proofreader right now, and I'm gonna have to launch this book. And my plan a year ago was to do thriller like right to market, because I really enjoyed it. Like I enjoyed
Yeah,
writing it, I enjoyed the characters, and now I don't know what to do with it. Like I'm gonna publish it, but like after that, I don't know. I can't compete with AI, so
yeah,
in a way, I yeah, I'm not dependent on it, but I am definitely cognizant of what that's going to feel like for the genre writers, the right
yeah.
to market people.
But so let's say you're not a genre writer. You're just writing. You're trying to come up with craft, and you're doing like, I want to write weird things. This weird thing that I come up with. Um, how would you recommend people start using this as a tool?
You're not going to believe what I'm
Okay,
about to say.
I'm
I'm
ready for
telling
it.
you, you're going to be like, "What?" All right. I think, and for people like us, me, the people in my community, I think this is a really exciting time
Yeah.
because their livelihood is not dependent on what AI books end up on Amazon. So I
Mhm.
think if you don't have that, if you're not dependent on Amazon or Audible, this is really cool. Um, I would say that you sit down with Chat GPT and collaborate with it.
Yeah.
And here's what's going to blow your mind: pants a book with Chat GPT. No
Fascinating.
plotting, no three-story method. Sit down with an idea and start riffing with Chat GPT. You're like, okay, I want to tell a story. Maybe have a character in mind, a character with a problem, right?
Yeah.
Bring that to Chat GPT and be like, here's my character, here's the problem, here's the setting. I want to write sort of a paranormal romance style book, uh, and put my character, waking up, getting ready to go to work. What happens next?
Yeah.
And then Chat GPT is going to write you a scene, and you'd be like, "That's pretty good, but can you make my protagonist gay?" Okay, great. Now rewrite it. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Now my protagonist just lost his father. Can you work that in? And you start like that. To me, is a great way to kind of play, to experiment. There's no stakes involved, and I'm going to be honest with you. That kind of stuff for me has been a lot of fun. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm really conversational with it. I know it's not a person, but I'll be like, "Ooh, that's really good. I typed that in. Ooh,
Yeah.
that's really good. Can you please rewrite that, but this time do it from this character's perspective?"
Yeah.
And then it'll even come back with "Sure!" exclamation point, and like it's
Yeah.
fun. And like,
Yeah.
is it AI created? Is it human generated? I don't know.
I don't
Back
know.
to like where
Yeah.
we
Who
started.
knows?
Who
Yeah.
knows, right?
Welcome to the new world. Yeah.
Who
Hey, if
knows?
you're a billionaire and you want to like pay to have somebody sort that out, fantastic. For the rest of
Yeah.
us, we get to use what they put on the internet. So for those
But
of us who aren't Jeff Bezos,
yeah, but I
well,
mean that's what I would do. Like I would pick your craziest story idea. Don't plan anything. Forget three-story method.
no,
Sit
man.
down and just brainstorm the craziest story idea you can come up with and see where
Yeah.
it goes.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of stuff where people are going to be like, "Oh, wow. There's 400 new thrillers that published yesterday in my specific genre, but this
Yeah.
story
But
stands
this one's
out."
weird. Yeah. This one's
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would also just add to that, like find your weaknesses. Like, I suck at market copy. I'm the worst, right?
Yeah.
You just handed me a tool that can do that for me, right? Like, and can do it much better than I can. Like, I'm really bad at settings. So I found that like when I'm writing something, I'll be like, describe this place with this kind of thing. Like, describe for me a cafe that feels cozy, and exists in the 19th century, Washington, D.C. And it's like, it's not going to
Yeah.
give me the perfect thing, but it's going to give me a couple paragraphs that are like here. And then I'll be like, spookier.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
because
And
that's it. If you haven't used
yeah.
it, you give it something and then it's like, now what? And you
Yeah.
like, you say like, make it this. So each prompt is actually a conversation you're having with
Right.
this as it develops the thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I feel bad. Like we said, we have people, friends, and people in this industry, and I think if your primary revenue is proofreading, book description writing, um, stock covers.
Yeah.
You better start now, because those jobs are going away. Those
Yeah.
freelance work it's essentially over.
Yeah. And on the other hand, like, I had a problem to solve with like how do you describe character voice, and I came up with the dialogue daisy. I am not worried about AI at this level right now, as it is right now, being able to do something like that.
Right.
Now, I wish I had it so that I could have asked it so that it could have helped me come up with that answer. But I don't think it was going to. I couldn't say like, "Hey, describe character voice for me," and it would have spit back, "Well, character voice is like a daisy," right? Like, I don't think it would have done that. So
Right.
it's
Well, so
you
here's
better
a dis-
believe though, I'm writing that nonfiction book. You better believe I put into Chat GPT how do you write how do you write great dialogue?
yeah, well, here's
To
the
see what it says.
distinction though, right? Like it won't be long before you'll be able to say, analyze my scene using Jeff Elkins' Daisy, and it
Yeah,
it will do it, right?
yeah,
That that's definitely going to happen.
yeah,
What won't happen is, if you have a group of 5 or 6 people who love to write on the weekends and the evenings, they really enjoy it. They make books for their family, and they want to become better at writing dialogue, and they want you to teach them.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
not going
That's
anywhere.
not
That's
going
where you
anywhere.
double down, right? Like
Yeah,
that's where this is going. And
yeah,
in a very broad sense, I'm running a business mastermind right now. I'm in one myself. And all of the talk that I'm talking and that I'm hearing is, if you can do small learning cohorts, at least for
yeah,
now, that's a viable future, because
yeah,
a lot of the low level analytical stuff, the AI is not only going to do it, it's going to do it better than you.
yeah. Well, and there is that like the cohort level is about, like I was talking about earlier, I don't know what to ask anymore. I need a group of people
Right.
to help me understand what I need to do next. Right. Like, and that's where you can't replace individuals.
No,
It's
and
like,
don't
yeah,
discount the social element to that. Like,
yeah,
there's an abundance of research, and we all know it. We all know this is the truth, but giving people a reason to show up and interact on a regular basis in real life or even over Zoom is really important. And
yeah,
if people are paying for that, they're more likely to do it. They have skin in the game. And that's not something that AI is going to replicate, at least not in the near future. But again, who knows? Like,
yeah,
I don't see AI showing up at a coffee shop with 7 people on a Thursday evening yet.
yeah,
But like, that's the kind of thing. Like, forget the proofreading. Teach people how to proofread.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Anything else we haven't talked about that's in your list of notes that we need to cover?
I there was one thing that we talked about, or that you had mentioned. I don't know if I really want to go here though.
No, let's do
Uh,
it. Let's go.
okay,
Nobody's listening to us anymore anyway, Jay. So
so
they left at dystopia.
all right, then I'm going to turn your question on you. I'm going to have you
Okay.
answer it first.
Okay, I'm ready.
What do you say to authors who say, "I'm not touching this; it's cheating"?
Um, I my answer might surprise you. I'm gonna say like, hey, we all set limitations on ourselves. We all do. Like we all do. We're like, I'm not. I only write in like me. I only write in Microsoft Word. Yeah, sure. Scrivener would probably be much better for me. Like Google Docs would be way better for me because I could share it with people easier. But this is the weird limitation I've set on myself. This is where I write, and I can't, I can't tell you why, but like it is part of who I am. And so if you're gonna be like, I'm not gonna use this, it's cheating, that's a fantastic standard to set for yourself. That's great. Right. We all set standards for ourselves. Just don't go judging others for it. Right.
Mm.
Like, yeah, if you feel like it's cheating and you don't want to do it, fantastic. I hate to bring it to you. There aren't any referees. There's nobody that's like blowing a whistle. Be like, shh, that guy used to. And if you're waiting for a referee to show up and you are not Jeff Bezos, that referee is probably not showing up in your corner. Right. Like that's the thing is that like we're in a market and the people who own the market own the referees. This is not fair
Yeah.
play sports. So like if you're expecting a referee to show up and set rules around Chat GPT, they're not going to set them for you. You're going to be sad. No, they are not setting those rules to empower indie authors. That's not how that's happening. But I would say, there's probably a bunch of people out there that feel the same way as you do. Start building a cohort and see where it goes. Right? Like, no, seriously, like, hey, get a group together on the Facebook or on a Slack channel or in a Discord and be like, writers who refuse to use AI. And like, you will form a community around that.
Yeah.
And that is a great way to start building a tribe. But I would encourage you not to judge others for it.
Well, that's a much more practical answer than I have.
What?
I would
What's your answer?
Well, for me, it's hard to even engage in that conversation because it assumes a scarcity mindset, which I don't have.
Yeah.
Because the underlying assumption is if you're cheating, you're taking something that I could get. You're taking what could belong to me.
Yep.
You're gaming the system. And we don't live in a scarcity world anymore.
Yeah.
If anything, AI has taught everyone is we are now in an age of abundance, more than any of us ever wanted, right? We're going to have more stuff than ever before. So the whole underlying assumption of that scarcity mindset and cheating, that I'm somehow taking something from you, I just discount that. Like, I think that, and I discount it because I think at the core, that's just fear.
Yeah.
That's really what's driving it. And none of us make our best decisions or think clear-headed when we're coming from a place of fear. And so if you're fearing this, that's going to taint all the decisions you make. It's going to affect your outlook on this. I mean, we can't tell people not to be afraid. Like, that's stupid. It doesn't work that way. But I'm just calling it out for what it is. Like, I think if you're in a fear mindset right now, you're going to see danger everywhere. You're going to see exactly what you want to see.
Yeah. And there are communities that have existed for it's coming from somebody with a religious background. There are communities that have existed for hundreds of years based on fear. And they're good communities and people love to be in them. So if you're going to live in fear of this thing, build a community because it's a better place to be than afraid by yourself in a corner. Right? Like,
and I won't judge you for being afraid of it, but don't judge me.
Don't judge me for not joining your community.
Right.
I will also say, I think, as we're just kind of riffing, thinking about how to use it, I will tell people, discipline the time you give to it.
Oh, good point.
Because you can lose a day. You can lose a month just screwing around, just seeing what's possible. You're going to have to experiment with it a little bit to understand how you want to use it, but then discipline the time. I said at work that we use it to help brainstorm with things. I tell my writing team, if you ask it to brainstorm something and you are 4 seconds into that thing's brainstorm and it is not helpful, go do something else.
Yes.
Because it's you can lose time just screwing with it. That is not going to help you write a book. Right. Like,
I think that's a wise suggestion. I would put limitations on time. I would set the scale of the experimentation. So even prior to AI, I always thought short stories were a great way to learn, experiment, to get reps in. So if you limit yourself to a short story, like, in addition to the time element, because you could spend days on a short story, but like, scale it down to something that's manageable, something that you can do, and be very cognizant of time, because it does slip away when you get in there.
Yeah, and I hate this about the world we live in, but it's just very true that we live in our world is capitalistic. It's profit driven, and profit is attention. And for AI right now, for every $1 they're spending on understanding why it comes up with the solutions it comes up with, they are spending $10 on marketing it to you. So just know there are lots of design decisions going into Chat GPT. How it functions, how it looks, how you use it. There are marketing teams around that. Even the word like hallucination, right? Like, you'll hear people talk about like, oh, the AI hallucinated. I'm like, whatever marketing team called that hallucination, you guys should get a gold star. Like, way to go. Because that's called glitching. Like, Calling it hallucination though personalizes it and makes us feel like it pushes us to this place where we like accept it on a different level than we wouldn't if they called that a glitch.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
and there, I promise that decision was made by a marketing team.
Yeah.
There is a marketing team, there's lots of money here, and there's marketing teams behind this that are trying to figure out how to keep your eyes on it.
Yes.
So just like any social media, like, yeah, using Instagram, you can sell books there. You can also not write for 5 days
Yeah.
because you're scrolling. So you just got to be strategic with your time and like what you're doing. Yeah. Anyway. All right, man. Well, thanks. Anything else you want to bring up? Last words?
I just want to thank you for the opportunity to kind of talk through this. You know, I've said to people, and you know this too, as an editor and a coach, like it really helps to talk through your ideas and get them
Yeah.
out of your head and bounce them off other people. And so I know I'm going to be doing more around AI. It might not be specific for authors because a lot of the feedback I've gotten from authors so far is they're not interested in it, and I'm not out to convert anyone. I'm not
Yeah.
evangelical
Yeah.
about this.
Yeah.
But I just appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk through it. And so thanks for the invite.
Yeah. Dude, as the godfather of this podcasting community, anytime you have anything you want to talk about with AI, please, I will turn the recording on and we can
All
talk.
right.
Yeah. Because I don't talk about this very much.
Yeah.
I'm 100% on page with this. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I started talking with my community in the Patreon back in September. I remember somebody back in, no, it was like maybe in August, somebody asked like, hey, what's Chat GPT going to do? Or September, what's this AI writing program going to do? I don't even know if it was called Chat GPT back then. And I was like, genre writers are screwed. I was like, I was like back in September. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll talk about this all day. Anyway, all right, thanks, man. I'm gonna stop the recording. We can hang out a little bit more.